Let me introduce my guest as we look at this very interesting or serious development in Nigeria. The biggest thing that probably could happen to us at this particular time, positive thing that is this World Economic Forum Africa. Dr. Emeka Okengwu is joining us this morning. Dr. Okengwu is a development expert. Thank you so very much, sir, for finding time to join us.
It's a privilege to be here with you, Benga.
Mr. Yanni Bukari is also joining us this morning. Yanni is a development economist. He's also a legal practitioner. Yanni, good to see you.
Thank you.
Right. We couldn't have prayed for something better than what we are having now, particularly for those who are saddled with the business of managing Nigeria's economy. This is an august moment for them. Just how significant is this development in our life at this particular time?
Well, there are two dimensions to it. Politically, very significant. Politically significant because, you're bringing the world to your home.
Okay.
And in the face of what we've gone through, in the face of, the bad press and bad smearing that we've had in the past, bringing the world, bringing the best in the world, because if you look at the World Economic Forum, it's actually populated by the biggest and the best. I think the least members you have there would be people who are carrying a portfolio of about $5 billion politically. That's
the least?
Yes, the membership. But it's important that we look at how the World Economic Forum emerged, so that we can be able to now look at the political the economic dimension, which, if you're getting people who have a minimum of 5 billion in their portfolios and you're getting them to talk, who are they going to be interfacing? So probably what we might be benefiting, from this World Economic Forum coming into Nigeria might just be the talk. How is that talk going to probably translate into the work is what might pose a challenge, and what we might need to, look at in the process of this discussion.
How to address that challenge?
Yes.
Of course, look at it. Yanni, in the face, perhaps the only thing that Nigeria has put Nigeria permanently in the news globally of late is our security challenges. That's probably the only thing that is being reported about Nigeria. But at least for the next 3 days, attention is probably going to be diverted away from that negative thing to the fact that, like he said, the biggest and the best investors globally will be in our shores. That's something positive. Refreshing. How do I call it? A breath of fresh air. At last. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I do not know if I will be as excited as you are.
You are not? Why?
It being refreshing and a breath of fresh air. Because when you've got an issue that remains unsolved, having global attention on it is important so that you do not lose traction.
Okay.
So in that sense, the attention that has been given to the cases of bomb blast and kidnap is positive attention. When you're more concerned with your reputation than problem solving, then you'll be obsessed with what is said about you. But when the discourse is surrounding the lives of people in your country and is getting the attention of as many parties as have some capacity to be of help to you, to consider doing that. And that is externally. Then internally, it's also putting those who have been laced with the responsibility of providing security with added pressure, some positive pressure to get on to do the job because they are on the spotlight. You want to take advantage of that as much as you possibly can. And in that sense, a total diversion to an event here in Abuja, the Economic Forum, might not necessarily be, in that sense, something to come out and celebrate. And I'm speaking here only in terms of the fact that it's turning attention to something else. Yeah. And secondly, when you've got that kind of situation going on, and then suddenly tomorrow and till the weekend, everything that's going to be on international media is going to be World Economic Forum, it might suggest that everything is okay. you know, when your house is on fire, it's kind of hard to have visitors in it. I'm not saying the economic forum shouldn't be held, considering the decision to hold the economic forum was made before the attacks, before the kidnaps. So, you know, the economic forum is not happening in defiance to it or as an act of insensitivity. It's always been in the works to be carried out. But I'm just responding to what you said. So I do not know if we should jump in excitement that something positive is being said about our country, because it might serve the unintended consequence of making us lose traction on this matter. Others would assume that we have
3 days will make us to forget that we have those problems on our hands. Perhaps it could also be an opportunity to even also get some solutions to the problem of insecurity.
Well, there's all of those possible incidental advantages, like, you know, it's the focus of the forum is economy. It's not World Security Forum. So I do not think that we should hold out hopes that the World Economic Forum is going to bring us solutions in the immediate. Of course, like I said, there are always smart people coming together. You would get incidental points of view that would be helpful. But then it's media, it's global media attention. It's very important. A lot is happening all over the world all the time. Every day you turn on the news, it's like there is bad news competing for attention.
Yeah.
There was a time the biggest thing on news was what was going on in South Sudan. Somehow, as soon as Sochi Winter Olympics finished, all attention turned to Ukraine. Syria is still going on. All of these are issues that have not been solved, but the global attention has moved on because there's a fresher event happening. So in that sense, I might still insist that 3 days of blackout, and I'm sure it's not going to be a blackout, which is the good part. It's not like
you could even trust that some of the media will be coming here, particularly to even highlight those negative sides.
There will be questions like what we're having today. You know, there's an economic forum for Africa going on, whilst there's ABC, whilst there's the kidnap situation, whilst there's this going on. So it doesn't mean that there will be a total blackout, but to say that at last something good can be reported about us as something to rejoice over, I really don't see the point. But I think the whole of the discourse, I expect reasonably, will keep on going anyways. Okay,
let's quickly touch that issue out. Dr. Okengwu, to what extent do you think our past and present, I mean the security challenges of the past and that are still on our hands, to what extent do you see this as probably a disincentive to the World Economic Forum?
It can be a disincentive, you know, because I think...
You don't think there are people who may likely...
No, it won't
just come, let's go and see, not with an open heart to taking advantage of the investment opportunities that we have.
For me, and I'm saying this, if there's any time in our country all of us need to stand together, it's now. Because right now it's very clear and obvious that probably what is happening in our country has some international connections to it. We're no longer dealing with a local problem. If you watch the videos of being released by, you know, the insurgents, you find out that the kind of ammunitions are carrying, the kind of displays that is being, the forms of attacks now. So I don't think we're dealing with a local problem. I think we're dealing with something a lot more elaborate. Okay, so for that reason, and I also think that, you see, when we talk about a war, yes, the Boko Haram, you know, war is asymmetric in the sense that, I mean, anybody in this room can be Boko Haram. And one tiny little fry, you know, can actually cause damage and then 100 people dies. You see, I don't think that is very representative of the fact that, you know, we are actually losing the Boko Haram war. I think we are winning the Boko Haram war in the sense that Nigerians are beginning to stand together. I mean, I felt so proud to be Nigerian when I saw those women. Hausas, Kanuris, Fulanis, Igbos, everybody, every mother coming out, and nobody, I mean, people wearing hijab and people wearing georges and people, you know, we're all standing together to say, no, we want our girls back. Having also said that, I think our focus is like, what are we expecting from getting, you know, like I said to you, these big players with deep pockets into Nigeria? What should we be presenting as a country? You know, for me, I do not think that we should focus on probably the Minister of Economy, going to be telling you how we've been able to rebase to $510 billion, and Minister of Agriculture telling you how, Nigeria agricultural business has become business. I would have been more interested in probably seeing the MD or whoever is managing Ajokuta showcasing the potentials of Ajokuta, because Ajokuta is a $10 billion project, for crying out loud. I'm talking about $10 billion 30, 40 years ago. I'm expecting probably somebody to be able to now get into that conference and showcase, the potentials of our, infrastructure, road infrastructure, transport infrastructure, and linking these things to probably development of mines, development of beneficiation plans, and all that. And I think at that point in time, the people with the money will wake up. So what I'm trying to say is that we can make this thing a talk show. We'll have the whole world snap pictures with all the presidents of the world that are coming. But that's not what I think Nigeria should be focusing on. For right now, I think this security challenge should be put where it is. Should be put where it is, and it's some noise, some petulance. Because for me, those characters are cowards.
Okay.
They're just simple, plain psychopaths. It shouldn't have effect on. Those are no human beings.
It shouldn't be a disincentive.
No, it shouldn't be a disincentive, because everybody in the world now knows that it's all about to create a lot of sand and fury. That's the truth. Way back in those days, when they started and they say, okay, this is what our demands are, this is what our demands are not, and all of a sudden you're killing children, you're killing Muslims, you're killing Christians. What's this? Okay, so why should we make it an issue?
No, it's not us actually making it an issue. It's whether or not it could be a disincentive.
It wasn't
all of
ETA wasn't a disincentive in Spain.
Whether it could be a major drawback.
ETA wasn't. ETA has been in Spain for forever. It hasn't been the Spanish economy grew with all the challenges of ETA. I'm not trying to say, but I'm trying to say to you, Benga, that what we need to do in this country, first and foremost, I've said this severally here, is can we be able to build social safety networks that can give people choices? Because right now, a lot of these guys, the ones they caught in Ghana were talking about being given $3,000. Okay, to them, changing it to Nigerian money was 300,000. That money maybe they could have never have dreamt of making in their lifetime. But if we had, small jobs, the mining, I keep yelling about this thing. The mining sector, I was talking with my brother when we were outside. This is from Bauchi State. The amount of resources in Bauchi land, it's unquantifiable. The amount of coal, the amount of kaolin, the amount of lead, the amount of zinc. And I'm not talking about people are exploiting and removing these things. If we had some integrated approach to developing that mining sector that could take thousands and thousands of people and link into an infrastructure that can now be able to now start generating national integration, then we can be proud.
The fact that we don't have
the
fact that we don't have this is also still a failure of government.
Yes, I agree.
Yanni, we're looking at whether the fact that we have these kind of security challenges on our hand could be a major drawback at the end of the day for the expected gains from this economic forum. Is that a possibility?
I would take a step back and ask a question about the expected gains of the forum in itself. The forum has a maximum membership of 1,100 people. I can't.
1,000.
1,000.
But among them, leading investors across the world.
Leading investors, big pockets, minimum of 5 billion. I find that I'm always a bit reticent to get excited over prioritizing foreign direct investment as your first go-to solution to your development challenges and your economic development. Foreign direct investment follows opportunities in a large market. What are the opportunities? He's mentioned some, using Bauchi as an example. Every state you would bring out its profile. You would have similar situations, exactly. Yeah, and then you've got the population and all of that. So yes, there is a lot to be said for the obvious advantages for a foreign investor to come to your country. I get worried when that is the go-to answer from government every time we talk about economic development or development as a whole. Because for me, it's important. I'm first of all primarily concerned about development, and I'm excited about economic growth only as it is clearly mainstreamed into making the lives of Nigerians better. See, Vision 2020 is very achievable, and our poverty level would not even decrease, because it's a goal to raise your GDP. We just rebased, and we're the largest economy in Africa. I didn't wake up richer. I didn't wake up, like you said, with more social services.
We probably have been so for 4 or 5 years.
Exactly. And now we've rebased. So my point being that while there are obvious advantages to getting the attention of foreign direct investors, the government should give me a better story. It's becoming a little pedantic. It's beginning to sound like it's lazy thinking and just a lack of creativity. You cannot say that of all the resources you have in Nigeria, you cannot develop the economy without someone else's money. I refuse to believe that that is the trap we are in. We make so much resources from oil. You go through the newspapers. On one column, you've got a story that says something like, these billions of dollars were found under somebody's bed. It's not foreigners' money. It's not foreign money. It's money made by Nigeria, meant for Nigerians. Then on the next column, you see someone telling us how we cannot develop if we do not get foreigners coming to invest. And there's an obvious discrepancy in that. It's an irony. Like I said, I'm not saying that foreign direct investment does not have its advantages, but to tell me that while you've got all this money,
has to start from,
while you've got all this money in circulation that people are stealing,
yeah,
you have not solved that problem. And it's not an either-or situation. There are things you can do at the same time. That every time we say Nigeria's development, foreign direct investment, let's get someone somewhere to come and bring money. I think that it's a bit too easy a solution. I was just looking at the ad before we started, talking about people who made changes. And the guy with the cool baritone voice said at the ad that it was not easy. So for me, I'm a bit sick of the easy solutions. Nation building is just goddamn difficult.
It's not a popularity contest.
It's not an easy job.
A good leader should not expect
you have to
the citizens to be clapping for him.
You have to accept that this is going to be a tough job, and I'm not going to get easy solutions. Ab initio, that's how you're going to enter into service with. And then just to tie that quickly to what you said about if the security challenges will be a disincentive.
Yeah.
Of course. Now, I was reading yesterday some draft of, I think, a memo that was going to be given by today and tomorrow to the participants and the delegates for this economic forum. And somewhere within it, referring just to, placate them and give them a peace of mind regarding the security, it says, we are perfectly in control and we are going to have what is the largest security operation ever provided for an international conference. Then it takes one step further and it breaks it down and says we have 6,000 policemen and men from the military forces covering an area of 250 square kilometers. If you do the math, that is about 24 security persons per square kilometer. That's very accurate, very specific. If I'm coming to invest in a country, I don't want to see police. I want to come around and see the people happy. When I think of a good place to invest, I think of some Caribbean island where everyone is happy, where they do not need that much soldiers or policemen per square kilometer before I can feel secure. True security is not when you've got all of that. Those are contingencies when there's a problem, when there's insecurity. You're solving it, so you go back to the norm. The norm is that you don't need to have these people. So when you've closed up the airports, you're going to close down schools. You're going to people are not going to go to work. So in that sense, I found it quite ironic that on the one hand, all these are activities that pump money into the economy. So in a way, it's a bit like we're going to put our economy in hold in order to have a conference on economy. I think it's ironic, but it just might be me thinking that way.
I understand.
And so I don't think that it's not. I mean, it's not a disincentive. It's a disincentive to say we have all that. And then also I ask this question. It's so specific, the commitment to provide security for the World Economic Forum on Africa, and it's important. People are coming, we need their money, we need them to take us seriously, we need to keep them safe. But I have not been able to see that kind of accuracy in providing security for Nigerians in light of all the security challenges we've been going through. I've not heard some clear with mathematical accuracy, this kind of breakdown of we have this number of soldiers around this forest where Boko Haram said it covers these square kilometers and they're going to do this. And it creates a cynicism amongst the people, the same people that are the market that the government is promoting.
That the investors will come and meet.
Exactly.
Eventually, if they choose to invest.
And then lastly, it's that investors talk to fellow investors in the market. Like when you get investors, they're coming to talk to industry in the country. So like he made a very important point. I don't want to see government officials. I don't want to see the ministers. I don't want to see people coming from different organizations that are funded by government. I want to see someone from Ashaka Cement in Gombe, some Dangote, I understand he's been there. I want to see the people who constitute the private sector of Nigeria interacting with these persons and being at the forefront. And I'm not seeing that. You've got an economic forum we're a country that is obsessed with liberalization. And when you're obsessed with liberalization, you're basically saying we want to take government out of business so that private sector can do business and government will regulate and make money from tax and use that tax money to develop people. An assumption that is wrought with, a logic that is wrought with assumptions that are all non-existent in Nigeria, but that's another discourse. Now, when you have all of that and you do not have a vibrant private sector, you're starting at the end. You're saying, bring your money, let the foreign investors bring their money, and when their money comes, it would inject life to the private sector. And then when these guys come, they are forced to talk with government. So the government you're trying to get out of business is even getting more and more in business. So it's a bit of a self-defeating cycle, the way I see it.
Dr. Okengwu, there's so much you need to react to here. The World Economic Forum, as I understand it, is supposed to be a private sector initiative.
Non-profit.
Non-profit.
Yes.
But from what we are seeing, is like the Nigerian government is at the driver's seat for this economic forum. Aren't we trying to distort what this forum has been all about, all along? And again, how prepared do you think the Nigerian investor is? Because if you look at, you could count those who have been investing in the Nigerian economy. There are very few. When you remove the Dangotes, probably your $10 and a few others, you probably could count all of them on the fingertip of just one hand. So the private sector in Nigeria appears not ready or not there for their counterparts that have the deep pockets that are coming, who should be coming to come and discuss with them. So would we have a situation whereby eventually, like Yanni is trying to conclude, that eventually these private foreign investors will end up discussing with government? A government that has no business in business. At least that's what government has been parroting.
Okay, let's just put it a little bit rhetorically. First and foremost, there's a difference, as I keep having this discussion with you, between economics and economy. And the activities that happen in economics and the activities that happen in economy. In very lay language, economy has more to do with production. And if you're having production, you actually now have what you call the rail sector, okay, being the driver of what you call your infrastructure development. Infrastructure development now becomes demand driven. And when I'm talking infrastructure development here, I'm talking about both your human capital and your natural resources. Benga, what has happened in Nigeria is that we had a system that was evolving, but somehow with the inflow of the European imperialists, and this is why you can never in the world global order now take away foreign investment. If you call it foreign direct investment or you call it foreign investment, the whole monies of the world is actually tied to just one single monetary program. So everybody is going there to go and fetch. You call it the Bretton Woods institutions, you call it the World Bank, you call it angel venture capitalists, you call it even the vulture funds. Everything is revolving around, some economic program. And that is why they talk about globalization. Okay? Now, having said that, the problem we find in Nigeria is that our governance structure has not been able, to now institutionalize the frameworks that can engender economic growth. What you now have is development without growth. What's the difference? What you call painted sepulchres. You want to start a studio. You bring in somebody from Israel, he designs your studio, equips your studio, and walks away. 2 months after that, new equipment come, this building. In fact, you can't even maintain a crack because you have not been able to drive this thing from what you call your back end or substructure to what you call your front end or your superstructure. This is where we have a challenge. However, we have been able to also politically develop a lot. That is why we have a lot of problems in the power sector. You have somebody is made minister, his name is Dr. Emeka Okengwu, and from one little village in Abia State, I go and mount one heavy, substation there. He's also made a minister, he's from Bauchi State, he goes and mounts another one in his village. So by the time you now want to now start integrating this power infrastructure, you don't have any primary off-takers. Okay? But what we can be able to do first and foremost is like what we've also told Nigeria is, let us take away focus from the governance structure that we have now. It was even made worse by the military command and control structure that also came in, started developing a lot of parastatals, a lot of government agencies that were basically doing the same thing and doing nothing at all. So in trying to now get the focus, first and foremost, like I said to you, politically, yes, we should celebrate that we have people coming into Nigeria. However, if we're also not careful, it might just be the fun fair. It might just be they want to come and look at this place and then they go away. They might just want to come and rest. It might just be take a trip to Africa and see what Africa looks like. Except we are able to probably now sit down and develop what you can call, if you want to use the word private sector, but I don't truly, in my heart of hearts, believe that Nigeria has any private sector. What we just have are people who take money from government, and then when they're out of government, they go and start also now trading with government. When they're back to government, they become government. Because if you look at everybody... Some
of them even enjoy what we call, what is that fund called now? The one, intervention fund, every time.
Anytime somebody now wants to make some money, if politics is coming, I'm sorry to say this, they plan one intervention program. Who gets these funds? How is it distributed? How is it, implemented? Who monitors it? You talk about all sorts of manners of funds in agriculture, and then one woman in Bauchi comes and says to you, until the intervention fund came, now she can now use fertilizer, to plant her rice. And all that kind of, but that's not the way to go. I think what we should do is first and foremost, while we are looking at the political gains of getting these big people, because first and foremost, remember that Africa and the rest of the world is a creation of these characters. That's the truth. We are just puppets, that they're playing around with, because everything that we do is tied to them. The televisions that people are listening to us now, is it from your satellite? Did you make it? I mean, by the end of the day, somebody calls you from London and says, Benga, your program, was beautiful today. Why? Because AIT is linked to one satellite that you probably don't even know who launched it, who owns it. All you know is that you pay some money and you can link to it. So global capital is very key and cannot be avoided. However, again, even the money that Yanni is talking about being stolen, how do we make it? We don't have a market here. Even if we produce all the whole crude oil, and we decided to consume it in Nigeria, we do make that money. You will need to still sell it abroad to be able to now bring in this money. But I think in the case of corruption, I've always said this, corruption in Nigeria is structural. In the sense that our budgeting system, our expenditure system, our procurement system encourages and protects corruption. How does this happen? Your DG, he's DG, I am governor. You give me a check of my state, Abia State, and give me the powers to hire and fire everybody that will help me spend that money. Everyone. Every one of them.
So whoever does not agree to how you want to spend it is fired.
A governor can wake up in the morning, fire commissioner of finance, fire
sack the accountant general,
everybody,
sack the auditor general,
without any excuse. And these are the people helping him sign the check of the state. A DG, as long as that budget has been approved and money released to him, he's given an envelope he wasn't part of. So when the money now comes, he says, okay, fine. As long as you have subheads that those monies have listed, travel and tours, he decides you want all of you will go to Geneva. Procurement of computers, he decides he wants to go and buy 300 computers because it's listed there. So these are all the things that, as a nation, what I think we first and foremost will do, and I tell you what the problem is, sir. The problem is just one thing: data. The major problem of planning in Nigeria is that Nigeria has not been able to in place a proper data system. We don't know how many we are. We don't know what human resources we have. We don't know what natural resources we have. We don't know who is using what. You don't know who is doing what. Man tells you today that the manufacturing sector is dead. Minister of Trade and Industry says to you is exploding. So there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of disconnect. What we need to do is to begin to create new economic programs that can probably not be too as emboldened. The challenges of Bauchi vis-a-vis economic development might not be the same challenges of Abia State, might not be the same challenges of Ogun or Ekiti State, but you can have economic blocks. Abia, Imo, River State might be able to form an economic zone. Bauchi, Gombe, Taraba might be able to form another economic block where you now have what you can begin to now develop what you call your common shared infrastructure. That way. But on a last note, so I don't take a lot of your time. What we need to do to be able to get into global reckoning is to look at what got us into global reckoning in the first place. Resources. Benga, resources.
Natural or human?
Resources. Even human. They took most of us as slaves. So why are we not now converting that slave mentality into skill? Why are we not, instead of now exporting slaves, export skills? Why are we not, instead of now exporting tin ore, exporting ingots, exporting alloys? And these natural resources are still there. And nobody is talking about mining. And yet everything you do, everything that has to do with your movement here and there, I mean, in a nation, and this is quite saddening, that has 2 steel plants, and we're having an infrastructure development in the airport subsector, consuming close to $500 million, not what $600 million really, because it's $100 million from Nigeria, not one from any of our steel plants.
From within.
We are building a rail track. In fact, the rail track from Lagos to Ibadan is costing about $1.5 or $1.3 billion. Extending it to Kano is taking $8 billion and counting. Not one boat. Yet we have 2 steel plants. And all the materials that can be able to now produce the rolling stock and the equipment are here that could have created jobs. In this Boko Haram infested area, Nigeria has 900, and I want you to quote me on this, 900 million metric tons of a material they call bentonite. They have a lot of barite around the Ibi-Taraba axis. These are the 2 ingredients, or 2 major ingredients used in making drilling mud that we use in producing oil. And when you hear capital flight in oil production, it is from exploration. And yet, we are not looking at that angle. If we had an investor, people are investing in Congo, for crying out aloud. A lot of investment is in Congo with all the wars they have. But it is because there is data. So if you had, and that's why I keep saying that Boko Haram is all about one little boy or one madman, carrying a bomb and then go to drop where sensible people are. And they say, oh, Boko Haram has done an attack. If we were able to probably develop 10, 15 mines around that axis, I'm not trying to say the Boko Haram insurgency will be there. It will not be reduced to what it is. Some agitation that might be contained. This is my thinking.
Yanni, the question is, have we done the needful at all before we are inviting the entire world to come and look at us? Infrastructure-wise, for example, have we prepared Nigeria ready for those beautiful brides in the names of investors that are coming? Look at our power sector, for example. Yes, the figures look right. We are the biggest economy in Africa, but then compare some countries with Nigeria, South Africa, Egypt, for example, where if you look at the power sector, you can't compare Nigeria and those countries. It's like comparing sleep with death. We are battling to provide between 4,000 and 5,000 megawatts of power. You have South Africa that is almost finishing work on about, I think, is it 35,000?
No, 40,000. They already have 40,000 and they're expanding.
Yeah, the expansion.
Yes. The expansion is another 30,000. They have 40,000.
Which is almost ready.
Yes.
That they don't need.
Yes.
And this is Nigeria of 170 million people battling or sharing just between 4 and 5,000 megawatts. Are we serious? Have we prepared ourselves for the world to come and invest?
I asked a question, or a rhetorical earlier. What's the justification for this seeming obsessive need for other people to come? Is it a need? Will we die if they don't come? Are they coming because without them we can't survive, or are they coming to enter into mutually beneficial relationships where we gain and they gain and it's symbiotic, i.e. they would seek us out because they would benefit from it? Now, for me, those are some of the questions I'll ask before I get to how prepared we are. Secondly, it's very obvious that we aren't, but then that having been said, I don't think there's a point you get. I don't think there's a marker that you get to and say, okay, now I am ready. Foreign investors I can pay attention to. Again, they're not mutually exclusive engagements, but they're incremental. You grow, and if foreign investment comes in, hopefully and reasonably, to the extent that you are strong in the certain aspects that are open and ready for it to come into. So you don't have to achieve 100% everything before you say, okay, now my house is perfect, foreign investor can come. What you want is to be moving in a certain direction insistently. He just mentioned, or you both just mentioned, what South Africa is doing with power. And they started somewhere and they've been moving in that same direction. And the more you have power, the more everything that is related and allied to power as a result, as an input for its investment, which is, let's face it, everything, would be attracted to it. So we seem to always, one, we start at the end, then two, we also want foreign investment to do for us what we ought to do for ourselves. So it becomes a bit of a vicious cycle. You say we need infrastructure in order to get foreign investment. Then someone says to you, well, the infrastructure needs are so large, we need foreign investment in order to develop infrastructure. So you ask yourself, what is the threshold? What's the threshold of what the government ought to do?
Yeah.
Now, I am of the school that government is a social enterprise. The government exists for the people within that country to make their lives better. Government, basically, to my mind, exists in Nigeria, for example, so that Nigerians are able to wake up in the morning and go about their lives trying to maximize and be all that they can be without any kind of inhibition. Illiteracy is an inhibition. Ill-health is an inhibition. Lack of water is an inhibition. Lack of power is an inhibition. Lack of good value chain for your market so that you don't have to move from your village to make money from your products is an inhibition. Now, government exists to take away all of those inhibitions so that Nigerians can be what they choose to be within the confines of the law.
But has the Nigerian government...
That's the question. So if that hasn't been done, I think that we have a system where what we have is there's a systematic abdication of responsibility by government. It's very systematic and it's very subtle. When you say we need to build roads, and then you say, well, you see, it's so capital intensive, we need the private sector. Well, you can do it, and you're not doing it. And the argument is always, when we do this, private investors will come, a lot of money will come, but you're doing it primarily so that Nigerians are the best they can be. The government of a country does not exist for others. It exists for the people of that country. Everything else should be incidental, should be a consequence, or it should be secondary. it should never be perceived by the people that in terms of the priority of those in public office, the interest of someone else is giving primary attention on the argument that his interest would result incidentally to your interest. So I would roll out the red carpets, invest so much money, billions are going into this forum. I don't begrudge it's it's being hosted, like I said earlier. I think it's a good thing. When you see the repertoire of people coming, I would like to, if I have an opportunity, sit down with them and learn from them. These are people that we all have a lot to gain from coming. But when you see a situation where all of the billions is invested, the kind of commitment, the fervent attention given to details to get it right for these people, you don't see the same given to the people of the country. And then when the people say, why aren't you doing this? You're told, well, the reason we're giving these guys these priorities is because when they invest, you will incidentally benefit. It makes the people of the country of secondary and incidental interest, and that is very, very terrible.
Dr. Okengwu, the only thing we have to sell to the investors as it is that we have the market, and the market being the large market, the number of people with purchasing power, the number, the population, the sheer population. Outside of that, I'm not so sure we have any other thing to sell our potentials. It's like we're asking the investor to come and start from the basics. First of all, provide the infrastructure, and then look at where you can then invest, which is not what other countries are. If we don't have power, an investor will first of all have to think of, how do I conquer that problem first? You don't have roads, good road network, transportation. How do you evacuate your goods when you produce? He has to factor that into his plans before he then begins to think of how much he then needs to invest and all of that.
I think even the market you're talking about now, we truly don't even have it, because if you're looking at a country that is being classed as having over 80 million of its citizens living under $1. However,
so they don't even have the purchasing power.
Yes, however, I think what it is we are marketing is integration. Because remember that the $510 billion, dollars, okay, rebased GDP, is actually more in the infrastructure sector than any other thing else. Trust me, Nigeria has a good power network. But what has happened to our power network is that unlike other countries that have power networks, they are not linked to primary off-takers. Nigeria has probably some kind of, rail network that can also be applied. Again, they are also not linked to primary off-takers. So what it is I think we need to do, we can sell, is integration. If we're able to properly understand the politics, like I said, of substructure, demand-driven infrastructure to superstructure, then we can be able to sell it. Because trust me, take it, we'll have human capital. Benga, one of my occasions here, I called you Larry King of Africa. There is no studio they take you to in the world now that you won't hold your own. That's capital. That's capital. That's what we can sell. I mean, listening to Yanni, young, bright young man, there's no way they can get, if they put him inside the World Economic Forum now, I mean, all those guys with their deep pockets are going to be standing up to clap for him. That's capital. And there are so many millions of people around the country like that. So we're just not selling. I think the only problem we have is our government has not been able to understand probably what he's tried to present. Okay. But in also presenting that, I think there has to be a proper architecture, a framework that can be able to present us based on what it is we have as our potentials.
Okay, definitely. Maybe once the conference, the summit kicks off fully tomorrow, by Thursday, Friday, we will, of course, see the trend, and then we'll have issues that will quickly lash onto that. We might just have the chance of bringing both of you back maybe Thursday or Friday, and have to do a quick review or an analysis of the event as a whole. Thank you so much. Dr. Emeka Okengwu is the development expert. He has joined us this morning. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time. And of course, Yanni Bukar is a development economist as well as a lawyer. Thank you, Yanni.
Thank you very
Deeply
much.
appreciate your time.